making the final roster, and this was also before the team had developmental slots. So they've signed Bree Hall, which actually brings the number of South Carolina Gamecocks on a single WNBA team roster to a league high 4 players. So now the Fever have Aaliyah Boston, Raven Johnson, Ty Harris, and Bree Hall, who all went to the University of South Carolina. Now, we did hear from Coach Stephanie White that she's a fan of Dawn Staley. She's a fan of the way that Dawn Staley develops her players. So maybe that is, my cat's zooming right now. Maybe that's one of the reasons why they signed guard Bree Hall. But a lot of fans were also wondering, like, why is the Fever signing?
The tension in the room was thick enough to cut with a knife. Steph White finally snapped, firing back at the relentless questions about Caitlin Clark's health that have been circling the Indiana Fever like vultures. Everyone saw the star rookie heading to the locker room multiple times, and the whispers of a season-altering injury were becoming deafening. White wasn't just offering a standard coach's update, she was drawing a line in the sand. The face of the league is clearly struggling with something physical, and the coaching staff is reaching a breaking point, trying to keep the narrative under control while the fans demand the truth.
I just wanted to compare this to what the Indiana Fever have. And it says the Liberty's front court. They have Satu Sabli at 6'4". They have Leonie Fibich at 6'4". They have Brianna Stewart at 6'4". They have Jonquel Jones at 6'6". And then they have Han Shu at 6'11". And like, all of these players are all-star level players that maybe Han Shu, but like she's getting her footing in the WNBA. These are the type of teams that the Fever is going to have to beat down the line. Like even if we looked at when they played Dallas, like Dallas was bigger than the Fever. They're going up against the Sparks next. Like there's a lot of teams that just have taller, bigger wing and...
It all started when cameras caught Caitlin Clark disappearing into the tunnel during the game, not once, but several times. In the high-stakes world of the WNBA, your star player leaving the floor is usually a sign of disaster. Rumors immediately began to swirl that Clark was dealing with a significant issue that the team was trying to downplay. When a player of her caliber is missing from the huddle, the entire energy of the arena shifts. Fans weren't just curious, they were panicked. The sight of the #1 pick heading for treatment mid-game sent shockwaves through social media, leaving everyone wondering if the Fever's season was over before it even truly began.
I did want to talk about this for a second because I do think that it's very fair that reporters are trying to get clarity on this moment during the game when Caitlin Clark was going back and supposedly getting her back adjusted. Now, during the ABC broadcast, it was reported that she was getting work done on her groin area. That is what Holly Rowe said when she kind of looked. That was the speculation. Anyway, and then after the game, Coach Stephanie White and Caitlin Clark both said like she was just getting her back adjusted and she's totally fine. Now we saw Caitlin Clark during the game. She had on the back brace / like warmer thing. She was sitting on one of those higher, like the seat cushions, essentially.
Steph White's response was immediate and defensive, calling the situation basic maintenance. She explained that with the expansion of medical teams in the league, players are now getting regular adjustments just like any other professional athlete. But calling it maintenance didn't sit right with those watching the game closely. White insisted that everyone is focused on Caitlin, but other players are getting the same work done behind the scenes. She tried to frame it as a positive evolution of the game's professional standards. Yet the urgency of Clark's trips to the back told a different story. It felt less like a routine tune-up and more like a desperate attempt to keep their superstar functional.
He played in the NBA for many years. He's still playing overseas now. He's dealt with a lot of injuries. Like we talk about this. I've gotten his insight on some of the things that I even talk about on the show. My sister-in-laws play Division I basketball currently. Like we're a family of basketball players. I played basketball. Like I've been covering the NBA for over a decade. And so it is things that you see. You do see players go to the back and get adjustments or get work done or get something retaped, or sometimes it's just a bathroom break, like something as simple as that. Like we're seeing even with Anthony Edwards in the playoffs right now, he is playing on 2 bad knees right now. He hyperextended his...
The plot thickened when the broadcast team dropped a bombshell that contradicted the official team's story. While the Fever claimed it was a back adjustment, veteran reporter Holly Rowe noted that Clark was actually getting work done on her groin area. This discrepancy sent the rumor mill into overdrive. If it's just a simple back tweak, why the confusion? Having 2 different stories coming out of the same game is a massive red flag for any organization. It suggests a lack of internal communication, or worse, an attempt to hide the true nature of an injury that could sideline the league's biggest draw. Steph White had to address this head on, and her frustration was palpable.
Currently are the 4 players that they have an eye on as far as minutes restrictions and whatnot. I actually thought that Raven should have had more minutes in that season opener because I think that she is the best one-on-one defender on the Indiana Fever, and I thought they should have put her on Paige Beckers or on Arike, because Arike and Paige, and even Honesty Sims multiple times, was like cooking Indiana Fever players on defense. So I wouldn't have minded to see Raven out there more. I think Lexi Hall is a great ISO defender as well, but Lexi Hall, like she said, is on a minutes restriction. She played like 15 minutes, but I did think it was interesting.
During the game, the visual evidence of Clark's discomfort was hard to ignore. She was seen wearing a back brace and using specialized high seat cushions whenever she was on the bench. These aren't the typical accessories of a player who is 100% healthy. Analysts noted that her movement seemed slightly restricted, lacking that explosive first step that made her a legend at Iowa, while White wants the world to believe this is just part of the professional grind. The extra gear and medical support surrounding Clark tell a much more concerning tale. It's a delicate balancing act between protecting the player's privacy and managing the expectations of a massive global fan base.
Hear what she has to, like, coaches have to say, players have to say in their pressers. I just want to watch the game and see what happens. Now, that tracks by watching game 1. It tracks that they didn't run as many high screen and rolls because Coach Stephanie White said the Wings knew that it was coming. But I kind of just want to start watching the game and be like, what can we expect from the Fever? Because I can't really listen to these interviews anymore, because a lot of times what people are saying aren't necessarily matching up to what we're seeing. Like, even the emphasis on defense for this Fever team, that was the biggest thing through training camp, and everyone's talking about like our defense.
But the concerns don't stop with Caitlin. Steph White dropped another reality check when she revealed that the Fever currently have 4 or 5 players on strict minutes restrictions. This isn't just a minor hurdle, it's a full-blown roster crisis. When nearly half of your core rotation is being monitored by the medical staff for return-to-play protocols, your ability to build chemistry and win games is severely compromised. White mentioned names like Lexi Hull, Aaliyah Boston, and Ty Harris as being under the watchful eye of the trainers. It's a staggering admission that proves the Indiana Fever are far from full strength, despite the massive hype surrounding their new-look squad.
In her rookie season, it's less about, like, she had a fine game. She had, 27 and 5? Like, she had a fine game, and it's crazy to even say she had a fine game, because we know Caitlin Clark's potential. We know that there's more in that tank, and it's even less about the numbers that show up on the stat sheet and more about just the energy and the passion and the killer instinct and the will to win and the clutch gene and just everything that comes with it and the joy that she brings to the court. Like, she brought in these millions of fans. She brought in so many millions of fans, and you could see from clips of 2024, like, the way that arena.
In a surprising move to bolster their depleted ranks, the Fever recently signed guard Bree Hall to a player development contract. Hall is a familiar face, having been in the training camp last season, but her return signals a deeper strategy. She becomes the 4th South Carolina Gamecock on the roster, joining Aaliyah Boston, Raven Johnson, and Ty Harris. Steph White is a vocal fan of how Dawn Staley develops her players, and this signing feels like an attempt to bring in proven, tough-minded talent to help weather the storm. However, fans are questioning why the team is adding yet another guard when they are already struggling with a lack of size and presence in the front court.
Quick, you guys, I wanted to give you an update on Kate Martin. She was waived by the Golden State Valkyries, like we talked about last week, but she has been signed to the Los Angeles Sparks on a player development contract, and that's kind of cool. She gets to stay in California, and we'll see if she does get called up and she's able to play some games for the Sparks. It was actually kind of sad because she was doing an interview and she did, like, almost tear up. Like, you could hear it in her voice. She seemed pretty bummed about being cut from the Golden State Valkyries, and we'll just see what the Valkyries have to do. But again, you guys, as this league starts growing, as the contracts start getting more and more expensive, we're gonna see more of this. We're gonna see more ruthlessness.
The roster imbalance is becoming a glaring issue that could haunt the Fever all season. They are arguably one of the smallest teams in the league, and without significant post-player pickups, they risk getting bullied in the paint. With Monique Billings still sidelined by a rolled ankle, the burden on Aaliyah Boston is becoming unsustainable. Players like Michaela Timpson and Maisha Hines-Allen are being asked to play heavy minutes, but they might not be at the starter level needed to compete with the league's elite. The decision to sign another guard instead of a rim protector or a versatile forward is a move that has many experts scratching their heads as the season progresses. To see the danger, you only have to look at a team like the New York Liberty. Their front court is a literal wall of talent, featuring multiple players standing 6'4" and taller, including the 6'11" Han Shu. These are the giants the Fever will eventually have to slay if they want to be taken seriously as contenders. Even in their matchup against Dallas, the size difference was a major factor that the Fever couldn't overcome. Steph White knows that her team is outmatched physically, and the reliance on a guard-heavy rotation puts an immense amount of pressure on their perimeter shooting and transition defense to be perfect every single night. One of the most frustrating aspects for fans has been the lack of the legendary high screen and roll between Caitlin Clark and Aaliyah Boston. This duo was supposed to be unstoppable, yet it was barely utilized in the season opener. When asked about it, Steph White explained that other teams have already scouted the play and are ready for it. She suggested that the team needs to adapt and play through Boston as a hub rather than relying on a predictable two-player game. But critics argue that you don't abandon your best weapon just because the opponent knows it's coming. You run it until they prove they can actually stop it, which rarely happened in the past. The defensive side of the ball is where Steph White's frustration truly boils over. Throughout training camp, the narrative was entirely focused on building a lockdown defensive identity. However, when the lights came on for the first game, that defense was nowhere to be found. The Fever were getting shredded by opposing guards like Arik Ogunbowale and Odyssey Sims. White admitted that their defense was actually worse than their offense, which is a devastating blow for a team that spent weeks prioritizing that specific area. If the biggest point of emphasis in practice looks that bad in a real game, it raises serious questions about the team's current direction and execution. There is a sense of paranoia lingering over the Fever franchise, likely born from the devastating injury luck they faced last season. It feels like the coaching staff and medical team are walking on eggshells, terrified that another major setback could derail their momentum. This hyper-cautious approach explains the minutes restrictions and the frequent trips to the back for maintenance. While protecting player health is the priority, it's also creating a disjointed product on the floor. The players seem to be thinking too much, instead of playing with the free-flowing aggression that fans expect. They are playing like a team that is afraid to break, rather than a team ready to dominate. To combat the physical toll of the season, the Fever have significantly expanded their medical staff. This was a necessary move given the high contact level and the grueling schedule of the WNBA. White highlighted that having more hands on deck allows for regular maintenance and quicker adjustments, which should theoretically keep the players on the court longer. But the sheer volume of work being done behind the scenes suggests that the current roster is more fragile than they'd like to admit. It's a race against time to get everyone healthy and synchronized before the mid-season grind begins to take its toll on their conditioning and mental toughness. Perhaps the most concerning observation is the change in Caitlin Clark's body language. Fans who followed her through her historic college career and her initial rookie surge are noticing a lack of that signature joy. Instead of the fiery, trash-talking competitor who would run laps around the gym to fire up the crowd, we're seeing a player who looks burdened. There were multiple moments where she was glued to an iPad on the bench, obsessively reviewing film mid-game. While her dedication is unquestionable, there's a fear that she's overanalyzing the game, instead of playing with the instinctual brilliance that made her a global phenomenon in the first place. The aura of invincibility that Clark carried at Iowa seems to be under fire. In college, she could miss 20 shots in a row and still step up to hit the game winner with total confidence. Now, every missed bucket and every trip to the trainer's table is analyzed under a microscope. The pressure of being the face of a league undergoing a massive transition is a weight that few could carry. Fans just want to see her get back to being her rubbery, resilient self, bouncing back from hard fouls with a smile. The physical maintenance is one thing, but the mental maintenance required to stay at the top of this game is an entirely different challenge. The specific details of the player restrictions are quite telling. Lexi Hull was limited to just 15 minutes to avoid overworking her, while Aaliyah Boston and Ty Harris are on return-to-play protocols that limit their total workload. This means the coaching staff is constantly playing a game of Tetris with the lineup, trying to find winning combinations without exceeding the medical staff's strict limits. It's nearly impossible to find a rhythm when your best players are being pulled in and out of the game based on a stopwatch rather than the flow of the contest. This medical-first approach might save them in the long run, but it's costing them chemistry in the short term. Monique Billings remains a huge question mark for the Fever. Her ankle injury has been described as a day-to-day situation, but she's already missed critical time. While she has been seen practicing with the team, the staff is being extremely careful not to rush her back. Ankle injuries can be notoriously tricky and have a tendency to linger if not allowed to heal completely. Without her veteran presence and rebounding, the Fever's interior defense remains a massive hole that opponents are all too happy to exploit. Her return is the key to unlocking a more balanced lineup, but for now, the team is forced to play short-handed and undersized. The league itself is changing, with referees calling games much tighter than in previous years. This has led to a historic scoring output across the WNBA, with teams averaging over 87 points per game. While some stars like Breanna Stewart have voiced their frustration with the constant whistles disrupting the flow, the goal is clear: protect the players. By reducing the bloodbath-style physical play that the league was known for, the WNBA hopes to keep its stars healthy and the offense free-flowing. For a team like the Fever, who are currently battling a litany of injuries, these officiating changes could be the only thing keeping their season from falling apart entirely. In other news around the league, the drama involving Kate Martin has taken another turn. After being waived by the Golden State Valkyries in a move that left her visibly emotional, she has officially been signed by the Los Angeles Sparks on a player development contract. It's a bittersweet moment for the former Iowa star as she gets to stay in California but faces the reality of the league's ruthless roster cuts. As the WNBA grows and contracts become more lucrative, these types of transactions are going to become more common and much more cold-blooded. It's a reminder that talent alone isn't always enough to guarantee a spot in this evolving landscape. The Los Angeles Sparks are also dealing with their own set of internal questions regarding Cameron Brink. Despite being a top-tier talent, Brink only played 8 minutes in her season opener, leading to questions about her role and confidence. Head coach Curt Miller has been vocal about needing Brink to produce and play with more aggression. Coming back from a significant injury during her rookie season, it's clear that she is still finding her footing. But in a city like LA, where the spotlight is always bright, the pressure to perform immediately is immense. Whether she can find her rhythm in the Sparks' current system remains to be seen by everyone. There are growing whispers about whether the Sparks system is the right fit for a player like Brink to truly thrive. While she is a marketing powerhouse off the court with numerous brand deals, her on-court development is what matters most for her long-term career. If she isn't getting the minutes or the touches she needs to build her confidence, her potential could be wasted. The league is becoming more specialized, and players need to be in environments that highlight their specific strengths. For Brink, the clock is ticking to prove she can be the cornerstone player everyone expected her to be when she was drafted so high. Steph White's growing fatigue with the media cycle is starting to show. She's reached a point where the interviews and the pressers feel like a distraction from the actual work of coaching. She even mentioned that what is being said in these sessions often doesn't match what is happening on the court. For example, the constant talk about defensive improvement contrasted sharply with the poor defensive performance in Game 1. It's a classic case of a coach trying to manage public perception while privately dealing with a roster that is struggling to meet expectations. The disconnect between the talk and the walk is becoming a major theme for this Fever season. Ultimately, the weight of the entire league seems to be resting on the shoulders of Caitlin Clark and the Indiana Fever. The rumors, the maintenance breaks, and the defensive struggles are all magnified because of the unprecedented attention they've brought to the game. Steph White is doing her best to shield her players from the storm, but the cracks are starting to show. Whether this team can overcome their physical limitations and find the joy that made them famous is the biggest story in basketball right now. The talent is there, but the road to health and harmony is looking longer and more difficult than anyone ever expected it to be.